This video covers chapter 7 from the textbook. It's all stuff to do with algebra. So let's start with the first thing, substitution. So substitution is replacing letters with numbers. Okay, so this is algebra. So if I had something like b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, for example, then I might be told something like b is negative 2, c is 3, a is a half. Okay, so if I substitute those in, then what I'll get over here would be negative 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is a half, times by c, which is 3, all divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times a half. So I just need to work that out. So negative 2 squared is 4. Now what are we taking away from 4? Well, we've got 4 times 3, which is 12, half of 12, so you get 6. 2 times a half is 1. So we get negative 2 over 1, which is just negative 2. So all I'm going to say there is take care when you substitute in negatives. Yeah, remember your rules to do with multiplying and dividing negative numbers. And just to remind you as well, if you see something like this in algebra, that means 6 times a, and if you see something like this, that means c divided by f. Right, next thing we're going to look at is expanding and actually simplifying linear brackets, so there's no quadratics, and factorizing linear expressions. Okay, so here's an example: 4, 2a minus 3, and then minus 2, 5a plus 7. So we're going to expand and simplify. So let's put some arrows in. So we're going to multiply those out, and then see what we get. So from the first set of brackets, I'll get 8a minus 12. From the second set of brackets, I'll get negative 10a minus 14. Now, what I will get is that these will go together, the 8a and the negative 10a, and then these will go together, the negative 12 and the negative 14. So if I put those together, what I'll get is negative 2a minus 26. Okay, so actually we factorized in the first part, and in the second part we simplified. So that negative 2a minus 26 will be our final answer. So there we expanded the brackets and simplified. Now sometimes you need to factorize. Let's say I had something like 6x squared minus 4xy plus 12x. So first of all, I need to see what's the biggest number that goes into those three numbers, the 6, the 4 and the 12, and that's going to be 2. So 2 is going to go outside the bracket. Then I'm looking to see if there's a letter that goes, I've got in every single one, and that's x. All of them have got an x in, and actually what we've written down, this is actually the highest common factor of these three terms here. The rest is easy because we're now going to work out what needs to go inside the brackets for this to work. So this needs to be 3x, because 2x times 3x is 6x squared, minus 2y, that'll give you the negative 4xy, and then plus 6, don't need an x there, that will give you the 12x. So that bit is factorizing here, and the top here, this is expanding the brackets. and then we did the simplifying as well, expanding brackets and simplifying. And quite often when you expand brackets, you, as part of it, you need to simplify as well. Moving on to the next bit here, rearrange simple formulae. So that's a formula for something that we need to rearrange. So for example, to get Fahrenheit, we need to do 9/5 times the centigrade plus, I think it's 32. And let's say what we needed to do is make C the subject. Now what does that mean? That means that we want to finish with something which is C equals something. At the moment, what you can see is we've got F equals something. Now you use the same method that you use for solving an equation, yeah, which is doing the same thing to both sides. So use the solving equation method. Yeah, the solving equation method, which is when you do the same thing to both sides. Thing to both sides. Okay, so let's do that. So we've got this F equals 9/5 C plus 32. So the first thing I would do is to take away 32 from both sides. Minus 32 like this. So I would have F minus 32 equals 9/5C. Now what we can do to get rid of that 9/5 is actually times by 5/9. Yeah, because then that 9/5 times 5/9, it will just leave you with C. Now hopefully remember that thing is called reciprocal. So I'll get C. So if I times both sides by 5/9, I'll have F minus 32. That is going to get times by 5/9. So just flipping it around, C equals F minus 32 times by 5/9. Now there's other ways of writing it. You could change the 9/5, this bit here, you could change that to 1.8 and then just divide both sides by 1.8. Yeah, so you can do that. You'll still get the same answer. But the key to this is it looks pretty much like we're solving an equation. Now when you solve an equation, what you're trying to do is you're basically trying to work out what x is. You make x the subject. This is just telling you make a different letter the subject. Imagine you were solving an equation and you want to find out what c equals. This is what you would do. And in this section of the book, it's just about maybe equations or formulas like this where it's just going to be a couple of steps to make a different letter the subject. So here's another example. Let's say I had E equals mc squared, the famous formula, and I want to make C the subject. So first thing to do, divide both sides by m. M divided by m. So I'm going to lay this out in the same way that I would if I was solving an equation. So I'm going to write E divided by m. So I'm going to write it like this: E over m equals c squared. And because I've got c squared and I want c, I'm going to square root both sides. Okay, let's do that just over to the side here. So that would be, if I square root both sides, I'll have E over m, and I want the square root of that, equals c. Now when we make something the subject, we normally just write the subjects on the left. So all I'll do is flip it around here and get this. Okay, so that's rearranging a simple formula. The next bit, it says to expand 2 or 3 binomials. In other words, 2 or 3 brackets. So let's start with 2 brackets and expand in 2 brackets. Let's start with a simple one, x minus 3, x plus 4. So we'll expand the brackets. So this here, you can use arrows. Some people use a grid, totally up to you. So that'll give me x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 12. Now the two middle terms go together, so these two are going to go together, yeah, and when I do plus 4 minus 3, that just leaves me with 1x, which I can just write as x, so x squared plus x minus 12. Okay, so that's the same as 1x. In algebra we don't write the 1. Here's one that's a little bit more tricky, so let's have 3x plus 2 in the first bracket, and the second bracket we'll have 2x minus 4. So same 4 brackets, or 4 arrows, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's multiply this out and then simplify it. So I'll have 2x times 3x, that's 6x squared. 3x times negative 4 minus 12x. 2 times 2x, that's 4x. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Just like before, these two will go together. The negative 12 plus 4, and that will leave me with 6x squared. Negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8x minus 8. And then it says 2 or more brackets, so we do need to be able to multiply 3 sets of brackets. So let's say I had something like x minus 3, x plus 2, x plus 5, and I need to multiply out those brackets. Now what we're going to do, we're going to start with just 2 of them. So we're going to multiply out these 2 first. So only do 2 at a time. I'm going to start with the first 2. So let's put in, let's do that again. This, let's put in the arrows like this. I'm just doing the first 2, and then once we've done the first 2, I'll move on to the next one. So I'm just going to be working out the answer to these 2, which I'll do over here. So that will give me x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6. We'll simplify that because where these 2 are going to go together. Notice it's always the middle 2, and that will give us x squared minus x. It's like minus 1x minus 6. So now what we've got to do is to take what we've just done, the first 2 brackets, which is this x squared minus x minus 6, and that needs to be multiplied by x plus 5, like this. Now to make it a bit easier, I'm going to put this bracket in the front, and then this bracket here. So the order doesn't matter, we're multiplying. The reason I've done it that way around, it will allow me just to put in 3 arrows like this, 1, 2, 3 at the top, and then 1, 2, 3 at the bottom. So let's multiply all of those out and see what we get. So I get x times x squared, which is x cubed, x times negative x, which is negative x squared, x times negative 6, which is minus 6x. Then 5 times x squared is plus 5x squared. Then 5 times negative x is minus 5x. And then 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. Now here, there are things which go together, but they're sort of separated out. So actually, this negative, whoops, let's put that back in. So that was the negative x squared, I believe, so negative x squared there. So yeah, the things which are going to go together are going to be that negative x squared is going to get put together with that 5x squared. And then we've got some x's. Let's do this in a different colour. So that negative 6x is going to go with this negative 5x. So what we need to do is now simplify our answer. So we've got x cubed. Then I've got 5x squared minus x squared is plus 4x squared. Then negative 5, negative 6, so negative 11x, and then minus 30. There we go. So that would be our final answer. So the key to doing that is if you have three brackets, if you have three sets of brackets, do 2 first, so multiply 2 of the brackets first, then multiply by the third. Yeah, so you do 2 of the brackets first, which is what we did, the x minus 3 and the x plus 2 we did first, then you multiply it by the third. Moving on, the next thing we need to do is to factorize quadratic expressions of this form, and that will also help us with this, recognize the difference of two squares. Now sometimes you might see it referred to as the difference of two squares. Yeah, so I might refer to it as that just to save space. Yeah, so difference of two squared, DOTS dots. Right, so let's look at factorizing one of these quadratics. So let's say I wanted to factorize. Now factorizing is the opposite to expanding brackets. So factorizing is the opposite to expanding brackets. So this is putting the brackets back in. So let's say you want to factorize x squared minus 2x minus 35. So we know when we factorize this, this needs to go into double brackets. So it's going to be x here and x here. And we want to find those two numbers. Now the key to doing this is that you put a plus sign above the middle number and a times sign above the end number. Okay, so I'll just put that over here. Put a plus sign above the middle number put a times sign above the end number. Now why do we do that? That just reminds us that I'm trying to find two numbers that add to make -2. So two numbers that add to make -2, and the same two numbers multiply to give me -35. So this is a bit of trial and error, and actually this is the hardest bit of the question. So can we work out what these two numbers are? Right, the easiest way to do it is to start by writing down numbers that you know multiply to make 35. So I know 1 and 35. We'll deal with the negative in a minute. 1 and 35. And the only other ones are 5 and 7. Now, is it possible to use those two numbers to make these two numbers to make 2? No. I could use 5 and 7 to make 2, -2, if I make -7 and +5. So these are my two numbers, and these are the numbers that go into the brackets. So I just put a +5 in one bracket and a -7 in the other bracket, and that's done. Yeah, so plus sign above the middle number, times sign above the end number. Find your two numbers, put them in the brackets. Okay, here's another one. Let's try this. So let's say I had x squared plus 3x plus, let's change that to a minus. So plus 3x minus 4. Okay, so let's start. Plus sign, times sign. So I'm looking for two numbers where when I add those two numbers together, I get 3 plus 3. When I multiply those two numbers together, I get -4. So let's start by writing down the numbers that make 4. So it's either going to be 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Can I make 2 and 2 to get 3? No. I can use 4 and 1 to make +3 if I do the +4 and -1. So the two numbers that go in the brackets for this one is x minus 1 and x plus 4. Now the order doesn't matter. So if you write the brackets the other way around, that's absolutely fine. You'll still get the marks. Now the difference of two squares. Sometimes you see something like this: x squared minus 64, x squared minus 25, x squared minus 81. You notice they're all the same. Now these ones always factorize the same way. So this, let's say the one at the top here, that will factorize to give you x plus 8, x minus 8. Notice the same number, but one is positive, one is negative, and the number is the square root of 64. This one will be x plus 5, x minus 5. Again, notice that the 25 is a square number, and 5 is the square root of 25, and this one will just be x minus 9, x plus 9. So notice these are all the same. So if you see that pattern, then this is the method you use. So this is the difference of two squares. And why is it called that? Because you'll notice that this is squared and this is a square number. Yeah, this is squared and this is a square number. This is squared and this is a square number. And difference means negative, and each one of them has got a negative sign in the middle. That's why we use the difference. The difference are two things which are squared. Yeah, and that method we can use to quickly factorize quadratics that look like that. Right, we're on to the last section now, which is this one. And we want to be able to factorize quadratics that look a little bit more complicated. So not ones that are just like x squared plus 2x minus 9, but where this number might be a 2, or it might be a 3, or I don't know, a 6. Yeah, so ones where it's not just x at the front, and this has got a slightly different method. So we're going to go through how we do this. So we'll do a couple of examples, I think. So first one, we want to factorize 6x squared plus 5x minus 4. Now we know it's a different type to the previous one because look, there's a 6 there. If that was just x squared, then you do the plus and the times method. Right, this method is slightly different. So the first thing we're going to do, I'll write a method over here, is that we need to multiply the first and last numbers. Okay, so let's do that over here. Multiply the first and last numbers. 6 times negative 4, we get negative 24. That's step number 1. Step number 2, find two numbers that add and multiply. Now, before we would have found two numbers that add to give us this number. We'll put a plus sign there, and multiply to give this number. Okay, now it's slightly different. We still look for two numbers that add to give me this here, plus 5, but now we want to find two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24. So two numbers where they need to add to give me 5 plus 5, and they need to multiply to give me negative 24. So let's start by writing down the numbers that make 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 6 and 4. Can I use any of those numbers to make 5? Well, not the first one, nor the second one, or the last one, but I can use those two if I put the correct sign. So if I have a +8 and a -3, that will make -24, and it will add to make +5. Okay, so we've done step number 2, we found the two numbers. Step number 3, put the numbers in brackets. Now we do this. Now before, in the last example, we put x at the beginning of both brackets, but we don't have x at the beginning. In this question, I have 6x, or 6x squared. So what do I put at the beginning of both brackets? 6x. If that said 3x squared, I'd put 3x. If it said 2x squared, I'd put 2x. So, and then I'll put my two numbers in, -3 and +8. Okay, we've almost finished. The last step is cancel down. Now to cancel down, what I do is I look at both sets of brackets and I look to see, is it possible to divide all the numbers in the bracket by the same thing? Well, here I can divide both of these by 3, so I'll do that in a minute, and I can divide both of these by 2. Now it's not always possible to do this. Sometimes you can't divide either bracket, sometimes you can just divide or cancel down one. So if I divide both by 3 here, I get 2x minus 1 in the first bracket. And in the second bracket, dividing both by 2, I get 3x plus 4. This is now finished. Now I'm just going to check my answer by multiplying out and see if I get back to the question again. So this bit I'm doing here is a check. Is that actually correct? So let's multiply out the bracket. So 2x times 3x, 6x squared. 2x times by 4 is 8x. -1 times by 3x is 3x, and then -1 times by 4 is -4. Just like before, these two in the middle are going to go together. What do I end up with? I end up with 6x squared, and then +8 minus 3 is +5x, -4. This is right. This is what I started with in the question all the way back here. So I know that it works. Right, we'll do one more. And this one will be 2x squared plus 9x plus 4. Step number 1, multiply the first and the last number. 2 times 4 is 8. Right, what am I looking for? I'm trying to find two numbers. Let's do in black, done in black before. So two numbers where they add together to make this number here in the middle. So it's always that add to make that number in the middle, which is 9 plus 9. And the same two numbers need to multiply to make not 4, but this new number I've created here, 8 or plus 8. So two numbers that need to multiply to make plus 8. Now let's write down all the numbers that multiply to make 8. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Can I use the 1 and 8 to make 9? Yes, I can, but I can't use the 2 and 4. So I'm going to be using those two numbers. And actually, both of them are going to be plus. Yeah, because I want them to multiply to make plus 8 and add to make 9. So what do I put at the beginning of both brackets? 2x, because I've got 2x squared. What two numbers do I put in a bracket? Well, plus 1 and plus 8. Last step, cancel down. Now the first one you can't cancel down. The second one you can by dividing everything by 2. So the first bracket remains unchanged. Remember I said you can't always cancel down. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Then the second bracket becomes x plus 4. So let me just multiply out just to check. So you don't need to do this, only if you've got time in an exam you do it to check to see if it's correct. So what do I get? 2x times x, 2x squared. 2x times by 4, 8x. 1 times x is x. 1 times 4 is 4. Just like before, these two in the middle go together, giving me a final answer of 2x squared plus 9x plus 4. So my check shows me that the answer is right because I get back to what I've got to there. So probably this is the hardest part, and it's worth practicing this method because this is what will get you the higher grades when you can factorize things like this, not just the x squared plus something, but the 2x squared, the 3x squared. That will get you the higher grade, and also expanding those triple brackets as well.